everyone, and welcome to Meet the Experts. I'm Dory Sukup, your host, and with me today is a very special guest, Anastasia Kolodzik. She is co-founder and president of Expert Reserve Services. She is here today to discuss myths and realities about reserve studies and how her company helps board members as well as owners protect their investments. So I'm so excited that you're here with us and discover the plethora of information that Anastasia is going to be sharing with us. So welcome so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
This is such a hot topic right now, but before we get into all the myths and realities, can you first tell us a little bit about your company and how you truly help community members?
Of course. Our company was actually founded in 2002. My husband and I own it, and we run it as a family business. All of our daughters and sons-in-law work with us.
Nice.
We do have two different divisions. One is commercial, which is what we will speak about today. The other is residential. My husband is a native Floridian. I am not. I am from Alabama.
We couldn't tell.
And we have our main office based out of Daytona Beach, but we service all 67 counties in the state.
Nice. And what is the main function of the business?
The main function of the business is to assist board members, managers, and unit owners into the maintenance and life of their association and to protect their investment. Mm-hmm. We do replacement cost valuations, which is better known as insurance appraisals. Mm-hmm. And reserve studies for the condominiums and the homeowners associations.
Nice. That's a topic that actually many people don't quite understand what reserve studies really is all about. So can we start by first defining what a reserve study is?
Absolutely. A reserve study is generally a 30-year guideline in order for the managers and board members to put together a budget that will assist in the health of the association. It is for capital expenditures, deferred maintenance, and it gives you a roadmap of what you're projected to spend over the next 30 years on a yearly basis in part of the report, and also what the contributions would be in order to keep that financial health up to speed.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of information actually that people, when they go and buy a condominium or buy some kind of property that has an association or a house with association, that they don't even think about. All they care about is, oh, how does it look? Is it pretty? Am I going to be happy there? But that's really an afterthought for them.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of the information falls to the wayside upon purchase. Is a person will go and buy a unit or buy a single family home in a homeowners association, and at that point they believe that they are done.
Yes.
But having to maintain all of the amenities, your pool, your clubhouse, your generators, the paint, the roads, roofs, there's so many different things that the assessments pay for, and it doesn't quite come to light until later on.
Yes.
What actually should happen is, upon purchase, it should be explained to the new homeowner or new unit owner that these are the assessments, and they are apt to go up. They are apt to increase, especially with inflation, with construction costs, and everything in between.
And disasters.
Disasters. And if that association does not have a history of maintaining their reserves and depending on special assessments, then they're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, yeah. And from a consumer standpoint, I really did not know much about this until I met you. So now I am so knowledgeable about that because I own quite a bit of real estate that has associations. And frankly, as a consumer, I never even thought really about reserve studies and assessments and all that. I know today we're going to talk more about board members and property managers, but you should come back so we can do another one about consumers and how they can protect themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we need to come back. But today, let's talk about the commercial side where we're talking about board members and property managers. What can they expect to learn or know about reserve studies?
What they can expect to learn in the process is everything that the association is responsible for will be on that report. Whether it is funded or not, things such as, of course, the statute states roof, paint, pavement, and anything over $10,000 to replace. That being said, they will learn the useful and remaining life of each one of those components. They will learn the projected cost, the projected date of replacement or repair, and how to navigate that throughout the next 30 years.
So that is essential, really, to their management.
It
of
really
that property.
is. Yes, it really is. And there has not been enough focus on reserve studies and on proper planning over the past 20 or so years in a lot of the associations, not just condominiums, but homeowners, country clubs, houses of worship, any of those non-for-profit businesses can benefit from a reserve study.
I'm sure. So how often should an association conduct a reserve study?
The generalized schedule is every 3 years. We try to line it up with the replacement cost valuation. That way you get both of them done at the same time, which puts the association on a schedule. And it's easier for managers and board members to count on that every 3 years. They can put it in their budget that that's what's going to happen. We also offer updates. The updates in between those 3 years in this point in time is very essential because our inflation is fluctuating like crazy. Our construction costs are fluctuating like crazy.
For sure.
You know, last week plywood was back up to $130 a sheet.
Wow.
There's a lot of things that fluctuate. So if you do your annual updates, then you have that information every time you do your budget.
Nice.
And you can formulate your budget better.
And you're protecting, really,
Exactly.
everybody. And you're ready for whatever that might come up.
Exactly.
Now, I've heard you in conversations, Anastasia, tell me, oh, they need a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3 study. Now, of course, that was totally foreign language to me. But can we inform our audience what that really means?
Absolutely. The level 1 is your startup study. This is for associations who have not had a reserve study within the last 5 years or within the last 3 years, or they had a level 1 that was not up to speed a year or two ago and they need to do a whole new one. What this entails is a completely new component schedule, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and a completely new report. The way that we do the level 1s, we do the site visit, we do all of the financials, we ask for all the information and compile that with a draft so the association will be able to review it and be able to make adjustments and have meeting to go over it and completely understand it. Because if you don't understand it, you can't use it.
Yes.
A level 2 is offered as an update, and it is only when there is a material change. Now, if there's a material change, such as they add a pavilion, or they remove a pergola, or they build new mailboxes, a material change, that does not include replacing the roof or, repainting the building. That is done in between. A level 3 is your normal update without a site visit. That is done in between.
I see.
And usually that is running the numbers again with your current costs and with your current construction values.
So it's very important for them to really be in touch with a company like yours to determine each of the levels and get the information that they need to really proper manage that property or that association.
Absolutely. I mean, I have heard associations refer to it as the reserve doctor.
Okay.
Because once you get in with a certain company and they get to know your building and know the atmosphere and know what the schedule is, it's a relationship. It's not just a one and done
time,
thing.
yeah.
Yes, it's a relationship.
Yeah, it's very important. So I heard you talk about the schedule. So what are those component schedules that you're talking about?
The component schedule is the list of items that the association is responsible for. And that is everything: roof, paint, pavement, pool equipment, generators, domestic water pumps, cooling towers, anything that the association is responsible for. This also includes, or can include, remodeling of clubhouses, theater areas, tennis courts, anything that falls under the association responsibility. Now, one of the things that we've done with the component schedule is we have added insurance deductibles and debris cleanup. As you know, here in Florida, storms are very unpredictable. If an association has an insurance deductible, which all of them do, and there is a disaster, that insurance deductible falls back on the unit owners. Of course, you can't predict when you're going to need it, but we have a system to make it work. And then the debris cleanup goes hand in hand with the insurance deductible line. The debris cleanup is to remove all of the debris from the storm or from the disaster before you can rebuild, because that's usually not in the policy either, and it falls back on the unit owners. So you could very well, after a disaster, end up with a $30,000 per unit special assessment just because of the storm.
Yeah, so really it sounds to me like everything that you do and provide as a service helps protect avoiding those assessments.
Absolutely.
So if you're prepared for it, then you're not going to have those big assessments coming your way, like especially after a hurricane or...
Correct. Because a lot of times, if it's a big enough disaster, the owners are displaced anyway. They don't need another bill on top of having to go and live somewhere else while their building is being repaired.
Which this happens quite a bit.
It does.
Too.
It happens a lot.
That's so nice, and I'm surprised that not more people, because I live in a condo, and I hear a lot of stories from different people how much they get slammed with assessments, and that's because they didn't have someone like you to guide them and make sure that they have the proper planning, really, reserves.
Correct.
For that building.
And special assessments are kind of like the scarlet letter of the condo world. You do not want to try to sell your unit if you have a history of special assessments, simply because it is going to give that buyer negotiating room on your sales price.
Sure. Yeah, here goes your sales price, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, so sad. So what is the difference between fully 100% funded?
Okay, so fully funded and 100% funded are two completely different things.
Okay.
Yes. Fully funded basically means you have the money you need when you need it.
Okay.
So if you have a roof that costs $100,000 and it has a 10-year useful life, and you are 5 years into it, your fully funded balance should be $50,000.
Okay.
So that's fully funded.
Okay.
100% funded, which is and now that's the threshold method. The component method is your 100% funded. And each line has to be 100% funded before it's considered complete. The component method is the least conservative of the two, simply because there's funds sitting there doing nothing until you need them. Because the goal of the 100% funded is to be 100% funded in the component method. The goal of fully funded, which is your threshold method, is to have the money you need when you need it and not have a lot of excess funding sitting there doing nothing.
Okay. So as a company, as a board member or as a manager of this association, then they're seeking 100% funded or fully funded?
Fully funded.
Fully funded. Because then
Fully
if you're
funded.
100% funded, you have money sitting around doing nothing.
Correct.
And you don't really want that.
Correct.
Because you already have reserves.
Correct. And the 100% funded, or the component funding, is usually twice the assessment than the threshold funding.
Actually, let's get into that because I'm sure they would like more information about that. What is really the difference between what you're talking about, which is the threshold and the component funding?
It's just two different methods.
Okay.
The threshold is commonly known as pooled. So you have all your money in one basket,
Okay.
so to speak. You still have a component list. You still have a schedule.
Right.
But you have all of your, in the accounting part of it, you only have one account.
Okay.
So you have all of your funds. And you can pull from that for anything on that list.
I see. So
Okay.
it's not specific for the roof or the pool or
Correct.
the
You
tennis court.
don't
Everything is
have
in
balances. You don't have balances in your line
one.
items.
Okay.
So you can pull from that without a unit owner vote.
Oh,
Okay? So the board has control,
Okay.
which is sometimes viewed as a negative, but you just have to make sure you get the right board members in there.
Right.
The component side is commonly known as straight line. So you have balances in each one of your line items. You cannot move money from one line item to the next, even if you're in a deficit, because you will need a unit owner vote.
I see.
That's where a lot of special assessments come in. In the component method, if you have $10,000 in your fence line and you have $30,000 in your air conditioner line, but your fence is going to cost $20,000 without a unit vote, which would be a big vote, you cannot move that $10,000 from your air conditioners to your fence. So it makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of states in the U.S. that allow the straight line or component method anymore.
Okay. So
So
the other way is a more preferred.
it is. It is more conservative,
flexible.
and it also is less expensive on the unit owners, which is what the mentality is of the condo owners. They want to keep their assessments low. So the threshold method is more beneficial.
Now, from a board member's standpoint, which one do they prefer? Because then they can just vote and do whatever they want, right, without the owners?
Right.
Would that be a preferred method for the board, or as an owner, should they request the other type?
It depends on their documents of how they get to the threshold.
Okay.
You know, some documents will state that they have to have an owner vote. Some will not. The best thing for board members to do if they want to switch over to the threshold method is to contact their attorney and have them go over their documents and make sure that you are doing the right procedure.
Very interesting. Things that you never think about.
Correct.
Except when we're having this kind of conversation.
Yes.
So it's so good. This is such valuable information. I'm sure everybody is really very interested in knowing all this. So what is structural? I've heard you also speak about this, and also in your book you talk about structural integrity reserve study. What is that exactly?
So the legislature passed a new law, and it is called the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, which is a whole new product from our traditional reserve study, which is what we've been talking about this morning.
Okay.
This reserve study is based on an engineer or architect visual inspection and then turned into a structural reserve study. So it's a whole nother report, and it is deemed to be done every 10 years. This will include the 13 items per building that is laid out in the statute. Some of those items are the roof, the paint, load-bearing walls, foundations, windows, plumbing and electrical, fire systems, and so on. It is to hopefully deter any more incidences of disasters with these condominium buildings.
Right.
Do not confuse this with the milestone. This is completely different than the milestone. The milestone is based on age and location. This is based on the building itself.
Very interesting. So moving into all these differences, because there's just so many little intricate parts, and really there's some even acronyms that I have no idea what they are. So you're talking about traditional reserve study, And then the SIRS, I think.
Structural Integrity Reserve Study.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
we had to give it some letters because
Yeah.
there's just too
Too
much of it to say. Yes. Yes, the Traditional Reserve Study is what we've been doing for the last 30 years, putting together a budgeting guideline for the associations with all of the components that the association is responsible for on it. This SIRS is going to take the structural components and move them over to a different report. Now, the difference in these two, your Traditional Reserve Study can still be done under the threshold method. Your SIRS study has to be done under the component method, and it has to be fully funded by state statute.
I see.
The components that are in the Traditional Reserve Study that will move over to the SIRS are the ones that are listed in that statute.
This is just so much information.
I know, it's a lot.
That's why you need to get Anastasia's book and really dive into this information. It will be super helpful for you to really understand more in depth. And of course, this is what they do for business. So I would definitely, if you're confused about some of these new legislations and things like that, you definitely need to reach out and get to know exactly what are the things that you can do. So what is this whole process about? Like, you know, if they want to achieve the SIRS compliance with the law, what exactly would they have to do to accomplish this?
What they would need to do first is contact a structural engineer, one that is doing the SIRS inspections. There are a lot of them that are not.
Okay.
So you have to make sure, first step, that they are doing that.
And they're available, these engineers are out there, you just can Google and find some?
You can Google and find some. There are a few
you
that are
can
top
refer.
rated, or I can
Yeah.
refer you to
Okay,
some.
that's great.
But they are very busy. So you have to get in line because this has to be done before the end of 24.
Wow.
Every condo in the U.S., in the Florida, has to be done with an SIRS before the end of 2024.
Wow. So it's urgent.
It is urgent.
Yeah.
It is time sensitive. Once that engineer is contracted, they come out and do, or architect, they come out and do their report based on the list of items per building in the statute. That report is then sent to us, and we formulate the budgeting side of it. So it's a two-step process. The statute has basically taken two professions and merged them together, so we have to work in conjunction with each other.
Yeah. So once they get that inspector to come in and do that, what's the next step?
Then the engineer or architect will formulate a report that will come to us,
Okay.
and then we will formulate the reserve study
The
and get it
solution
to,
or
right,
what they need.
not necessarily the solution, but the plan.
Okay, the plan.
The plan, because this is nothing more than just a plan.
Yeah.
They have to know that, in 10 years, they're going to be doing complete refurbishment on the building. Or in 5 years, they're going to be replacing the roof.
Right.
Or in 7 years, they're going to be painting the building again and sealing it.
Yes.
So there's all of those intricate parts working together.
Yeah. A lot.
It is a lot.
A lot. That's why you guys are so busy. So how often do they need to do this SIRS?
The statute says that they need to do it every 10 years.
Okay.
Now, however, we are offering annual updates on the same basis that we offer annual updates for our traditional studies. Our construction costs and our labor costs and our inflation is fluctuating so much that if you get your SIRS this year and you wait 10 years, you could be over or underfunding that SIRS the entire time.
Wow. Yeah. So how does traditionally the SIRS replacement cost valuation and the schedule itself work together?
So it all works together to help formulate the budget. for the next year.
I see.
That's one of the main things. If you need a traditional reserve study, an SIRS, or a replacement cost valuation, it should be done the year before. The replacement cost valuations tend to be done the year that the insurance comes up for renewal.
I see.
But if you can get it all together and have it on a 3-year schedule, then you can have all of them done, one-stop shopping, and be finished for 3
Right.
years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Well, this sounds to me like it takes a lot of planning and being on top of your game, basically.
Oh, it does.
So you don't get behind the 8 ball and then you're in trouble.
Exactly.
And do you find that most associations really plan that well in advance and have that structure that you're talking about? Probably.
Honestly, no. No. One of the main issues is the changing of the boards and the changing of managers. When there is a changing of boards and changing of managers on a regular basis, like every year
Yes.
or so,
Yeah.
things tend to get lost. They tend to go to the wayside. So if you are a board member, you're a unit owner, you're a manager, when you take on a new association, that should be one of the first questions you ask is, when was the SIRS done, or was it done yet? When was the last reserve study, and do we have a replacement cost valuation? Those are the 3 main things that's going to keep you above board in your
Stay on top of
endeavors.
your game,
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
protect the building, the owners, the board members, everybody.
Exactly. But, and managers and board members tend to get overwhelmed with small things. And it just,
Instead of focusing on the big
right, it
picture.
doesn't come to light.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And it is overwhelming when you take over another building. I've managed myself. And it is very overwhelming when you go into a new building or a new association and you're looking for records and you're looking for this and you're looking for that and you're getting 30 phone calls in an hour. So yes, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But they do very well.
Yeah. Well, I know in where I live, the property manager seems to be on top of her game, and I think there's a good board member, but I really have no idea how on top of their game they are with all the SIRS and the reserves and this and that. Because a lot of times we find that owners don't even go to board meetings. Do you see that as a major problem when you're trying to work with board members and if they need decisions and the owners are not there?
That's a double-sided coin because most unit owners are not educated within the workings, so they depend on the board. And if they get too involved, it could complicate things. But the unit owners are owners. They do own one whatever of that building, and they are responsible for one whatever of that building. The main thing is just educate yourself. Read everything you can. If you're interested and you want to be involved, read everything you can, and make sure that you understand it.
Read the fine print.
Exactly. Make
Which
sure you
nobody likes to
understand
read.
it. And if you don't understand it, ask questions.
Well, the thing is, when you're signing papers to buy something, they give you these condo docs that are this thing. They're in foreign language. They're not English.
It's called legalese.
And what are you going to do? Like, I'm not going to read that. I have never
No.
read a condo association book.
Well, I have to say, I've
It's your job, though.
right. But when I bought in my HOA, I read the entire documents.
Wow.
Yes.
You remind me of a friend of mine that reads even when he buys a new car, he reads the whole car manual.
I am that friend. I did that too.
Oh, no. That's so funny. Well, let's talk a little bit about legality. What effect does really this new law have on board responsibilities?
Okay, so first off, I want to say I am not an attorney and I am not dictating the law, but I will tell you is in the statute itself, it says that failure to comply to this new SIRS law is a breach of the board member's responsibility.
Wow.
That opens up a whole new can of worms
Yes.
for litigation and for lawsuits, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it is vital that these board members understand that this has to be done by law.
Yeah. So do it. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see, Anastasia, with condo associations or board members or reserve studies? What are some of the things that people really need to understand and avoid?
One of the main things that I see is that board members tend to let their emotions get involved. Your condominium is a business. It is that simple. It is a business and should be run as such. If you allow your emotions to get involved, then it's going to fail. You're going to have problems. Keeping the assessments low is a good thing, but keeping them at a level that is healthy is a better thing. And you will have much more success selling a unit in a condo or a homeowners association with a healthy reserve than you will selling one without.
So well said.
Insurance deductibles will go down. Some insurance companies will not even write a policy if they don't have healthy reserves. Mortgage companies won't touch it if they don't have healthy reserves.
True.
I mean, there's so many different things, and then don't even start with the state. DBPR gets called, it could open up a whole world of problems. So I would say the one thing is run it like a business. Don't run it like it's your house. Run it like a business.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Very good advice. All right, so if I'm a board member or a property manager and I need to reach out and find out, what is the process that you give people who are interested in bringing you on to really help them first assess or come up with a good reserve study for them so they have that healthy business?
The first thing you need to do is you need to visit our website, which is expertreserveservices.com. There is a form there you can fill out to request a quote. It has all of the information in question form to give us so we can give you a formal quote. Once that quote is approved, we will schedule a site visit along with a meeting of the board members, manager, whoever is involved. And then we will start the process of formulating the report, doing the draft, and getting you on track.
And then making your recommendations to what they need
Yes.
to do.
Yes. Well, that's the draft.
That's the draft.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the draft.
I don't know that
I'm
language.
sorry.
So
Yes.
you need a draft.
The draft. Yes, you need to get a draft. And then once the draft is reviewed and adjusted if necessary, then we can finalize the report. The whole process usually takes about 30 days. Sometimes it can be a little quicker. Sometimes it takes a little longer depending on how accessible the information is or how long the board takes to get together, so to speak. Because some buildings have a lot of out-of-town owners. So we utilize Zoom a lot and conference calls and
Yeah.
make sure that everything is understood and palatable.
Yes, that's so wonderful. So I highly recommend, if you are a board member or you are a property manager or even an owner watching this, I would definitely encourage you to go check out Anastasia's and Dave's website and their company and see how they can offer help to you and give you that nice healthy business that you deserve and peace of mind, really. Most importantly, especially living in Florida. I mean, that is so important to really be on the in and know. What I gained from this is I know that now I need to be more involved because almost all my properties have condominium associations, and I'm ashamed to tell you I have never been to a meeting.
Oh my goodness.
But from now on, you have encouraged me to go and attend the meetings and really be in the in rather than the out and letting everybody make the decisions, whether they're good or bad.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
And, you know, as a unit owner, you have every right to ask questions, request records. You're involved.
Yeah.
You can be as involved as you like.
And I think that is probably one of my biggest takeaways from this is not only understanding all the ins and outs and the myth and the realities, but also be involved. I think that's a key factor for anybody associated with this. So that's great. Well, I am super excited about your book, and I want to encourage everybody to go to your website and they can get a copy of it. It's filled with great information to really help you. It will make a great book really for your building. Every board member should read it. Every property manager should read it, even owners. I think it's a great, great book for you to actually be in the inn and know exactly what you need to do to protect yourself, your building, your association, and be healthy. That's, I think, one of the
Yes.
most important things we want everybody
Financial health.
to do. Financial health, that's right. Treat it like a business. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank you
with
for
us.
having
And
me.
yes, it's been very, very helpful for everyone, I'm sure. Please leave us comments below this video. Anastasia would love to hear from you. Go to the website and get a quote and reach out to her and make sure you get her latest book. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
If you too would like to be on Meet the Experts, go to meettheexperts.com and apply. And we would love for you to share your knowledge and expertise with our community. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you.